So turns out, 12th of July, coming up Monday, that is, will have been 3 years of doing Spike Pit. Feels like longer, but no, it's 3 years, approaching 400 episodes now, and I'm making some changes, and I want to do things a bit better if I can. So I thought I'd ask the folks over on the Audio Dungeon Discord whether they had any suggestions, and Rob from Down in a Heap was kind enough to put in a suggestion, and he was talking about collaborations and maybe getting on a guest host. Whilst I haven't had time to organise anything, I do think it's a good idea, and it did remind me a little bit of some of the collaborations I have done in the past that are in the archived in the back catalogue. So what I thought I'd do, there's one I haven't listened to for a while, and it was actually with Erik Tenkar from Tavern Chat. We got together and had a good old fun time discussing RPGs and what that all looks like in terms of what's going on, and just we knocked about a range of different subjects. So I thought, why not clean up the audio a little bit and re-release it. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this little trip down memory lane.
Hey folks, welcome to TavernSpike. If you were looking for a Spike Pit, if you were looking for Tavern Chat, you have found a post-Halloween mongrelization of the two. Colin, this is cool, man.
Hello, sir, Mr. Tenkar. How you doing?
I am doing fine. This is if anybody is the heart of the anchorites on the OSR, it's Colin. I mean, he's the one. You push it, man. You are good.
Well, that's kind words, Eric. Kind words. I don't know. I don't know how all that came about. Really, I think probably just me calling into everyone, and if probably you couldn't listen to an Anchorite episode without hearing me droning on in the background. So it's probably something to do with that. But I find it a lot of fun.
Well, my wife Rachel was funny because I told her what we were doing this morning. And we talked about last night. She goes, "Spike Pit, that's Colin, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's Colin." She's like, "Damn it! I wish I was going to be home to listen to this." I'm like, "Okay,
that's awesome."
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I would say that Jason Hobbs is probably the one that birthed this whole movement.
Oh, totally. The Hobbs stuff, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been the midwife, and I've tried to give it a little wings, and I really am very impressed at how well this whole OSR movement has done. I think, I came in with blogs. I dabbled in posting in forums, but I found that reading blogs, and in the end, writing my own blog was my sweet point, and that was about 9.5 years ago. And I think the movement now is podcasts.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I mean, the whole blog thing passed me by, because really that hit its peak. I'm imagining from what I can tell and what people say, it hit its peak whilst I was kind of in my board gaming days. I started out as an RPG player, then I was board games, war games, and it got a little bit hard to run an RPG, and I drifted away but came back with 5e. And the blog thing was kind of big when I come back at the start of 5e, and the OSR was about and going strong, but I'm not much of a computer guy, so I missed out on a lot of the blogs.
Well, Well, I think blogging. There's a certain entry level to blogging that you have to have a commitment of time and finding your audience, and you have an audience that has to be fully engaged. They got to be able to sit down and read your written word. When it comes to, and that goes even to like YouTube, where somebody sit down and you got to watch the YouTube channel and listen to it. But podcasts are great because a podcast, you can listen to it on your commute.
Totally.
And that's what I was a podcast listening whore when I was working, because before I retired, because I would have about 45 minutes to an hour each way, and I was listening to everything from Happy Jacks, mostly because I personally, I would love the early episodes when they still had Tappy, who had no idea what he was talking about, but always acted like he was the authority and everything. And when he started talking about the OSR, I almost drove my car into a street pole. I was like, what the fuck? But
I love listening to Happy Jacks. Jason Hobbs mentioned them a little while back, and I tuned into. They got a massive long back catalogue. They're quite entertaining, and their songs at the end, I like their rambunctious kind of songs at the end.
Well, actually, you can find some of their songs on iTunes.
Okay.
And I actually bought one of their albums years ago when I initially had an iPhone. Then I went Android for a while, don't ask why. And now I'm back to iPhones, and I realized, oh my God, that's right, I have the Happy Jacks album. One or two of them.
Yeah.
One of the best songs is "Don't Stick It in the Crazy." You can figure out where that one goes, folks. I'm not going to sing it. You don't want to hear me sing anyway.
It goes the same places they all go. Oh, and you don't want to hear me. You don't want to hear me singing either, Eric. You've had personal experience of that.
Yes, I have. That was when Rach went, oh my God, this guy's awesome. I'm like,
did you hear the happy birthday to Hobbs? I got the wife in on the song this time.
Oh no, I didn't. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back and catch that on the back catalog.
Yeah, that's on Random Screed a few episodes back. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's all good fun.
Well, for those that don't know, Random Screed is Jason Hobbs's anchor cast. He also does Hobbs and Friends of the OSR and Hex Talk.
The amazing Hex Talk.
Hex Talk is great, and that's the whole thing. I find a lot of the energy when blogging was really hitting its stride, and that probably goes back 7-8 years ago. And there were some really great blogs in the OSR out there. And there still are. Some of them are coming back. That's what I find very interesting about this time. I've noticed some blogs like Dreams of Mythic Fantasy, which was one of my favorite. That has come back after a couple of years, and I believe Joe the Lawyer is bringing it back, Wondrous Imaginings, or in some sort. So
yeah, I've seen Joe the Lawyer's name crop up. I think maybe on MeWe or
he's on MeWe. He is the owner of the Dungeons. MeWe allows multiple groups with the same name, but Joe has a Dungeons and Dragons group with over 1,000 members on MeWe. He pops into the Tavern Chat some Wednesdays and the Breakfast Club. He popped in for a little bit on a Sunday morning.
Nice.
Yeah, I've known. In the case of Joe, his blog, Wondrous Imaginings, was one of the first blogs that I really got into reading when I got back to the hobby. Like you left the hobby for a while and you were doing board games. I left the hobby from 97 to about 2007. Yeah, when you have your sit down face to face group, and then and you're the last one that's kind of keeping it together, and then you take a job that has Wednesday, Thursdays off, and you work from 5:30 in the evening until like 2:00 in the morning. It's not easy to game. So and we didn't. But I came back because of virtual tabletops. I mean, that's another thing about this hobby that is really great. It's that the technology allows us to do so much that we couldn't do before.
That's right. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
The virtual tabletops, even Anchor. Anchor allows pretty much anybody to do a podcast. It's lowered the entry bar. You can make it as complicated as you want in the production of your episodes, but the entry bar has been lowered, and that I think is a great thing.
Oh, definitely. For me, Anchor, I was listening to Hobbs and Friends, and he mentioned this thing, Anchor, Jason did,
right,
and talked about random screed. I was driving in my van back from a job, and I went straight home, checked out this Anchor, and I thought, wow, that's awesome. I was listening to podcasts, no joke, probably 8 to 10 hours a day, because I'm a gardener. I'm working on my own. I can just listen all day long. See, this is how I keep up with all the podcasts of the anchorites, because I'm effectively earning while I'm listening. So the time is not a factor.
Dude, that is awesome.
Yeah, and Anchor was the answer to my creative outlet issue. I would have liked to write. I've messed about with writing, and I would love to say, I've got a blog and one thing and another, but it's just not my medium. This audio stuff is amazing, and like you say, I mean, you did an episode probably a few weeks back now, and you talked about how you was enjoying the Anchor, and you were not doing so much on your blog, because of how convenient it is to throw down an episode on Anchor.
Oh, it really is. And I was getting, again, people have been following the blog, some cases for 9 years, and I was getting pushback, and a lot of the pushback wasn't so much that I'm doing the podcast, but they felt that, every second or third blog post was mentioning the podcast. So I stopped mentioning the podcast on the blog, and I've seen no change in my Anchor traffic. My downloads haven't changed. Yeah. I've got my audience. I think my average downloads per episode is around 238, 239. It hovers around there now. Yep. It was steadily going up until I think people got through my back catalog. Now it's kind of
you was talking about that as well, weren't you? Like since we were talking about doing this thing, you did an episode and you'd said that back catalog is a factor.
It is, and I mean, you do a nearly daily podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like 6 days out of 7. I'm 7 out of 7. Glenn Hallstrom, I believe, is also pretty much 7 out of 7. He does it daily. I mean, for me, doing it daily, I haven't missed a blog post in 5-6 years. I mean, every day.
I don't know how you do that. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I don't have anything in a hopper, whether it comes to the podcast or whether it comes to the blog. There's not like I have like 6 posts waiting to go out, or a half dozen Anchor episodes, or I can just hit the button on and go, I had a shitty day, I don't have time. It might go up late, but it will go up.
Yeah, it definitely does, because sometimes even listening at the rate I listen to podcasts, I might get a couple of yours that will back up. I might get anybody who does it daily, so you or Glenn.
Right.
Sometimes I might get a couple of yours in the hopper. Yeah.
Well, what happens?
You're just that regular,
We're not regular, and also some of the pod catchers, some of the ways people listen to it, some of them seem to like update every 2 days. So it's like I'm kind of all like, oh, I didn't update on this one. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, there goes 3 episodes up one time. Interesting. Okay, but
yeah, I mean, I quite often have to listen twice to episodes as well because I like to listen on the Anchor app so I can do my applause and my call-ins and everything. But when I'm at work, it doesn't work so well, so I'm using a podcatcher.
okay. No, dude. I mean, like I said, I do believe that podcasts are a wave of the future. Not saying that blogs are going to go away. I'm certainly not going to stop blogging. I'm actually trying to implement a way where the tavern cannot just host my blog, but host other OSR blogs, all with their own RSS feed and work that. And another way of cross promotion, in this case, though, with blogs. But I think that the reason why blogs were so successful for the OSR, first initially, was Blogger. Blogger was an easy way to jump into blogging. It was free. It was fairly competent. Again, lowered the bar. You didn't have to worry about, oh my God, how am I going to...
Yeah, programming or anything.
Yeah. Do I need to know HTML to put up my what's it? WordPress? Yeah. Put up my WordPress. Because I actually experimented with WordPress probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years before I started blogging. I don't remember why. I guess I thought I should be doing something and making money online. And I think the secret to making money online is to just not spend money and pretend that you made it. Because there isn't that much money to be made online. I mean, and that being said, I probably make more through the tavern than a lot of small publishers do, which I've talked to them and I've been very surprised by that.
I think publishing that's got to be a very hard way to earn a living, I'd say.
Well, I think to earn a living, yes. To supplement your income, I mean, the number of people that I know that make a primary living off of their RPG creations is very, very small. I mean, Jeff Talanian is one of them, but he lives in the middle of nowhere up in New England, so I'm sure he must own his house outright with no mortgage. You gotta set yourself up properly if you're going to make a living off what is essentially a hobby.
Yeah, but it's good that the internet has made these options a thing. You know, I'll tell you what, you might find this hard to believe, but I've done no online gaming of any sort. So, you know, Call of Duty or any of that computer game stuff, role-playing games or any of that. I've done none of it at all until a couple of weeks ago, and it was on Discord, and I couldn't believe it. Suddenly, I didn't need to get a group together. I didn't need to do any of that. I just hopped onto Discord like we are now, and a guy, Talon, he run me through DCC, and I've played a couple of sessions with him, and we're probably regular play on a Sunday now. And that was just, I can't, you know, coming from a kid from the 80s, I was born 74, got into D&D, I got into D&D 80, 81, and you know, you would remember what it's like trying to get that face-to-face group together, especially in the UK. There was just no one doing it. In a whole school with hundreds of kids, you'd be lucky if there was 4 or 5 people that would play. And then half of them are half-hearted, you know.
Yeah, no, I was lucky. I actually had 2 groups. One, I spent a lot of my summers in the Poconos, and throughout high school, I had a group up in the Poconos, which was like the weekend games on occasion in the summers. And then home by 84, 85, like when I was finishing up high school, I finally cemented that steady group. And that steady group lasted from, like I said, mid-80s to 97. core group of players in that one. And we still get together once a year, usually in the late spring, early summer, just to hang out and reminisce. I usually bring a few role-playing gifts that from the modern OSR to give away, make them roll off with the high roll on D20, getting the first pick. You know, you gotta make it fun. But I do remember, and it wasn't easy. And when you found your core group, you didn't wonder. Yeah, it's not like you went from group to group. That was your group.
No. Exactly. Well, you didn't really have I certainly didn't have the privilege of being able to wander. It was, if you had a disagreement within the group, you had to sort it out or there would be no group.
Right. You had to sort it out or suck it up, one or the other, because those were magical times because it was so new. It really that was special.
It's totally revolutionized now, though, isn't it? I mean, that wasn't a million miles, wasn't a million years ago. And here we are now. You're on the other side of the pond. I'm sat here. We could effectively be playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons as we speak, couldn't we?
We could. Listen, when I was running
theater of the mind.
When I was running a steady Saturday group over Google Hangouts before Discord became a thing, we used Google Hangouts and Roll20, and we spanned from Vancouver, Canada, to Florida, through Georgia, New York, Connecticut. We were continent wide on a very large continent, and it was pretty much seamless. And yes, now we were using Roll20, so I don't use Roll20 with all the bells and whistles. When Roll20 reached out to me a couple of years ago and they wanted me to participate in a YouTube video showing how I GM'd, I had to tell them that I'm a minimalist because I was just using it for the map, and I used Fog of War to reveal where the players had been and were at, and I didn't use tokens. And if they wanted to know other stuff, it was theater of the mind and me pointing, with the digital pointer on the map and saying, "This is where you are. That's where your enemies are." Whatever. I don't have the patience generally to move tokens on a computer screen, because you're always then waiting on the slowest person, or the one that went AFK and you didn't know about it, but they had to make a potty break. And you're like, anybody, Bueller, you gonna move that last token up? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I can't. No tokens. No tokens for me.
I only found out what AFK was a fortnight ago when my youngest son told me. That's how clued up I am.
Nice.
I got an 8-year-old telling me AFK. Yeah, Dad, away from keyboard, Dad.
Well, you see, when my group stopped playing tabletop D&D, we moved on to games like EverQuest, and we never did World of Warcraft, but EverQuest, Anarchy Online, City of Heroes, Warhammer. So we did that because it allowed us to game from the privacy of our home, and you were able to still do the D&D type of bullshitting because we were all wearing headsets. Yeah. But it's now that virtual tabletops have come to the point they are, you can play D&D in your underwear. And nobody's going to be the wiser. I mean, yeah, okay. Even if you're using video, as long as you're wearing a shirt, nobody's seeing you from the waist down.
Too much information, Eric.
Oh, I can give you too much information about James Bond one day if James listens to this episode. Oh my God. Yeah,
no, I've just had my lunch.
Oh. I haven't even opened up for breakfast yet.
No, it's morning for you. Yeah, it's morning for you, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't know if 10 o'clock would be too early or not. Whether you'd be warmed up or.
Well, no. The only times that 10 o'clock isn't good for me is when I first had my cold about two weeks ago. I think I slept till like 12:15. I was like, "What the Fucking hell.
And you don't know where you're at, do you? Then
No, you don't. And Rach normally gets up for work. Well, her alarm goes off at 6, and then the snoozing goes on for another half an hour or so. So I'm not really sleeping because I just know that her snooze is going to be going off. So I generally sleep till about 6 a.m. and then doze off again around 7, and usually wake up around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, so this worked out all right then.
Oh yeah, this was perfect timing. If you did any later, I'd be stepping into my physical therapy at noon, so that would not be good.
No. I was talking about the past, Eric. I'd put a little note to remind me to talk to you about perhaps what your thoughts are on the future of gaming, because you've had your niece on.
Oh God,
recently. And I just wonder what your thoughts are with bringing kids into the game, because obviously, if we don't get some of the younger generation involved, it's all going to go a bit flat, isn't it?
It is, and there is now, has been, and probably always will be certain people in the hobby that try to be gatekeepers, where they set a minimum bar of what you have to be able to do before you can participate. I experienced it personally when I was told that my writing of Swords and Wizardry Light, which was basically taking the OSR down to 4 pages and still having level advancement, which I thought it's not a quick start. Quick starts I never liked as much because you tasted a game, but you didn't get to see what it was like to advance your character, which is what role-playing games, as we know it, are pretty much about, improving your character.
Yeah.
And I was told that I was ruining the OSR because I dumbed it down. I said I didn't dumb it down. I simplified it because I'm trying to lower the bar for people who can come back into the hobby, like lapsed gamers who haven't gamed in 20 years, and now seeing this on the media with D&D 5e. Maybe 5e is too complicated for you. Maybe it's more than you want to invest in. A lot of these OSR games you can get in PDF for free, full games.
Exactly. I mean, when I was a kid, and I don't see how it's much different now, you haven't got the money to throw down like $50, or if you wanted all the books, $150. What sort of kid's really gonna do that?
Right.
If they can go online and drop something on their phone and carry the rules in their pocket on their phone, they can sit at a lunch recess or lunchtime break and sit and play the game. They've got dice rollers on their phone, and they're not carrying that sort of Jansport backpack around with all their books.
No,
it's on their phones, isn't it?
It is, and that is, I think, is part of what makes it so much more accessible in a lot of ways. And I think the hobby has to grow with that. I'm very surprised that Wizards of the Coast has put so many restrictions on accessing 5e in a digital format. You can only go through their digital partner. The only PDF really is of the basic rules. I'm surprised that they are restricting it that much, because in the end, the future is going to be, what can you put on your tablet?
Oh yeah, I mean they're just inviting piracy by doing that. They're just get their product pirated. That's all they'll get there.
Because I mean, at this point, if I'm running a game, I generally, and I'm not running it from my desktop. If I'm running Swords and Wizardry, I'm going to bring the rules on my tablet. And if I'm running an adventure, it may be on my tablet, or maybe printed out. If something like Rapinathic, which is huge, it's going to be on my tablet, and maybe I'll print out the section where I know the players are going to be. And then if they go beyond that, I'll open up my tablet. I still remember going to games carrying all of my 1E books with me. I could never do that with 2E, because when I was...
All the splat books.
All the splat books and the Monster Compendium, which was the oversized binder.
Oh, massive, yeah.
You couldn't carry all that. You had to pick and choose what you were going to bring. And now, with tablets, You don't have to pick and choose anything. It can all be there. I think that the digital is the future, and as much as I love my Dead Tree books, and I love my Dead Tree collection is huge. I do know the future is going to be digital, and even as much as I love my Dead Tree, I want everything in digital too, because I want the convenience that I can read in bed and not keep my wife up with the light.
There's definitely that. And the other thing about digital that I like is the fact that you can take out what you want, and if you want to print out aspects of one game and combine them with another, and then put them in your own little file, because that's what I do. I've got like my GM file, and I'll have bits and bobs of different systems. It might just be random tables, stuff like that, and you can print them off the PDF and make your own little digest size file that you can then carry around.
So that's awesome.
You know, you're not breaking the spine on your book trying to get little photocopies of dubious quality. You can, you know, you're getting good copies, and it's a sort of in between. It's not fully digital, and it's not bag full of books. It's just like it's a curated collection of Dead Tree.
That's actually a decent idea.
But that works for me. But the other thing, we talked about the size of stuff. I like this. I like the fact that more and more people will do the digest size product. That's what I like.
Yeah, well, that digest size is convenient. Being that I am now 51 and my eyes show it, I like the digest size that doesn't downsize the font with it. I'll go for a thicker book. Yeah. But if they shrink the font down, especially below 11, it's like when I read I pull out some of my old first edition books and I go, how the hell did I ever read this? My eyesight was so much better when I was a kid.
They're dense, aren't they? They are dense.
But,
I often forget. I spout on about smaller things and smaller formats, and I am guilty of not taking into account people's sort of failing eyesight. And I totally understand that. But you've got no worries with a DCC core book. Whew.
Oh, jeez.
You'll be all right with that for a long time.
I've got like 3 different printings of it, and my experience with DCC, real quick, was when they had the beta or whatever they called the pre-release when they were playtesting it, I was very unimpressed with it. I really did not like it at all. Oh, and you can find posts about it on the blog. Once the finalized rules came out, and I'm holding that book, and I started reading it, and it's one of the few RPGs that I read from front to back in my adult life. It reignited that feeling that I got when I first looked at my friend's Dungeon Master's Guide for the first time after playing that one-on-one session. Yeah. I was like, this is magical. And that's rare for me to say about any kind of rules. Now, my regular, well, I haven't played in probably close to a year, but my regular Saturday group enjoyed the DCC adventures. They didn't like the DCC system. Too wonky, too random. Okay. And I wasn't going to disagree with that. That's probably right. But I do think that the DCC adventures, I've converted them on the fly to Swords and Wizardry. They're just fun and awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've only played 2 sessions online with Talon, and he's run modules. We played Frozen in Time, and I can't remember what the first one was. But funnily enough, on Glenn's show that I listened to this morning, the idea that he talks about a hog farm, and it's very, very much in the same vein as this DCC module that I played a couple of weeks back. And it was very spooky, but they were really entertaining modules, really good fun, very atmospheric. So.
Well, Glenn Steele with Middlelands. God.
Yes.
Oh my God. That is, what do they call it? Gaming juice? That is some gaming juice.
Yeah, that's his game juice in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just so much you can use from that. It's inspirational, even if you don't take it directly. There's just so much good stuff in there, and it's approachable. A lot of settings are not approachable. You feel like you have to read the whole thing to understand what's going on because there's all these little hidden Easter eggs. There's Easter eggs in the Middlelands, but it's approachable. You start reading it and you understand what's going on. Probably it's approachable too because it's based in part on a real life area, real life setting.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably even more approachable for somebody from the UK because I always thought it was approachable, but I wasn't sure if that was just because I recognised the places. But I mean, you're obviously not from the UK; you're still finding it approachable. So he's done his job well there, and I look forward to the third book. I did a little preview a couple of episodes back for the City of Greater London. That's the third book that he's kickstarting,
right?
And it focuses on his version of our capital, London, and it's given the Midlands spin. And funnily enough, I tried something a little bit different in that episode because I did a reading. I kind of did a reading of the blurb off of the back cover of the preview, and that went down really well.
Nice.
So there's been a request for more readings. So
are you going to do dramatic readings, and you're going to
it was
Shakespearean.
Yeah, it was a little bit. So I tried to make it a little bit theatrical. Because I thought, with my accent being what it is, I thought the Midlands was a perfect sort of subject for me and would be quite evocative to the listener. And folk will have to judge that for themselves. But I did get positive feedback, and I did enjoy doing it. It was quite fun.
Nice, very cool.
But the getting back to talk about audio media, it's a lot more personal, isn't it? Do you think?
It is. I think that. I mean, I've always prided myself that on the blog, if you read the blog, I wasn't putting on a show. It wasn't like you were looking at the RPG pundit, who's always going for a certain kind of shock jock aspect. If you read the blog, you pretty much had an idea of what my voice was, but a podcast allows people to really listen to you and connect with you, and I think that is different than a written material. So.
Definitely. I believe, now I'm going to start a story that I don't really know the end to, but I read something somewhere, as you do, that listening to stuff, especially on headphones, it's without wanting to freak anybody out, it's just a bit like someone's whispering in your ear. So you get this sort of attachment, there's a certain closeness that builds up. And if you hear that person regularly, your brain has trouble not recognizing them as a friend, if you know what I mean.
Oh, wow. Now I know why there's a little bit of a pushback on my podcast. No, I'm just joking.
Well, people think you're getting a bit too close, Eric.
No, I'm getting a bit too close. You're trying to make me like you. How dare you?
That's like me singing Marilyn Monroe in your ears. See, you've experienced that discomfort yourself. See,
my discomfort was the fact that my wife, Rach, was laughing hysterically. She's just like, oh my God. And this is the woman who she herself sang at our wedding, and she sang a song, to me. She's got a great voice. She used to be in a singer circle, and and she heard that, and she's just like, I really got to meet Colin. I go, well, you know what? That's going to be a long trip, huh?
Yeah, unless I get over there, of course, at some point.
Oh, hey. We are where the conventions are. I'm going to Gamehole next Wednesday. That's in Madison, Wisconsin. And we got Total Con in February in Boston. And then back to Wisconsin and Lake Geneva for GaryCon.
Well,
That
like
would be March.
Gary Con's the one I've always talked about to people because for like a D&D player, that's almost like a pilgrimage, isn't it?
It is, and I think if they keep on growing, they're going to have to move from Lake Geneva to Milwaukee because they're outgrowing the facility they're at, and there's no other facility to go to.
All right.
But now, if you want to go to a gaming convention and actually have the opportunity to talk with personalities like Frank Metzner, like Tim Kask, like Merle Rasmussen, and all the others, Jeff D. You're talking North Texas because it's a smaller con with the same number of special guests pretty much as Gary Con. So as opposed to 1,500 or 2,000 people vying for the attention of somebody, you've got 400.
North Texas is another one that gets a lot of people talking. I know that's a very popular amongst the old school, isn't it?
It is, and that's the one I've been going now for 5 years, 6 years. I think maybe this was the 5th year. Our first year, Rachel only went because I was supposed to go with Joe the lawyer, Joe D, and he had to back out, and that was going to be my first convention since like I don't know, '94. I went to Gen Con. So, so Rachel's like, "Oh, well, I'll go with you." I'm like, "You sure?" I'm like, "You don't really game." She's like, "Oh no, it's Dallas. I'm already looking up places I could hop on mass transit or grab a cab." I'm like, "All right, whatever." And we got there on Wednesday night. By Friday, now she played in games with me. She was registered to play them. By Friday, she was like, "We're coming back." I'm like, "Excuse me?" She goes, "We're coming back next year. I'm having a blast." And,
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and now she plays. You know, I don't think I didn't play in any games at this last North Texas. I was running the table for the Frogs. Rach, I think, played in like 4 games.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and she just had a blast. Now she has a copy of her Swords and Wizardry rules for herself. She's become a convention gamer. Some people only play at conventions, so that's Rachel's. But
I think you need to have a little bit of confidence to go to conventions. I reckon there's probably a lot of gamers that maybe never really summon up the confidence to go out to a convention. And it's a bit of a shame because I only went to my first role-playing convention relatively recently. I've been to gaming events a couple of times. I found them a little bit much. But the small little RPG things, I love them now. I go to a couple, and if you've never done it, it's something you got to try.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the closest thing that I've experienced to going to a convention, believe it or not, is the live chats that we do, like on Wednesday night and the RPG Breakfast Club on Sundays, because it allows you to talk gaming with people. Like at a convention, you'll end up sitting down as you're waiting to do something, whatever, and you just start talking with total strangers about gaming because you share that in common.
Yeah.
And when we do the live chats, it's very similar to that. Well, it's also very similar to doing a live podcast that is not recorded because there's things that come up that we just would never want to hear recorded.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Ray Otis was on. We were chatting on Discord on the Audio Dungeon, and he mentioned that the whole anchor thing is a little bit like the vibe is a bit right. So you've got the mainstream podcasts that are quite formal and well produced and everything else, and that's not to say that Anchor is a lesser thing or anything, but there's a slightly more casual feel, and it's like he said he likened it to being down a pub with your mates having a few beers, and that's how I see it. I think
that I see Anchor a little bit like punk rock. It's raw, it's energetic, and it speaks to you. And it's not speaking to you for commercial reasons. It's speaking to you for personal reasons. But then again, I was a punk rock fan in my late teens and early 20s, and would see the Ramones whenever they were in the area. So what do I know? I'm a dated old man now at 51.
I mean, that all passed me by. I think I just sort of really missed that a little bit. That was, I was a bit too young. I saw it going on around me, but I never was into the punk scene. But I was an art student, so
okay.
That was the little bit of rebellion for me, was going to art school and not having a proper job, and things like that. You know what art students are like.
Well, listen, I was a history major, and my mother always dreamed that I'd have a nice desk job. And she wasn't too happy when my desk job was sitting in a marked patrol vehicle in the South Bronx in the late 90s. So she adjusted.
That must have been pretty rough back then. Was that before that New York mayor, coming with zero tolerance?
That was under Giuliani, and that was at the crack epidemic was still rolling, but it was wrapping up. So I hit the streets in '97, and it was a dangerous, violent time. And by the time I got promoted in 2002 to sergeant, my command in Hunts Point was almost gentrifying. It was very strange how quickly things changed. But now we have heroin as our problem, and that's a whole different thing.
Oh, well.
Now, I need to say, I'm glad to be retired.
Yeah, I can't say as I blame you. And it was quite, I must say, it was quite an emotional episode you did on talking about like morale and talking about 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
It was an episode there that kind of come out of the blue a little bit, hit me in the feels, I have to say.
It's stuff you don't think about until you're in it, and then you're in it, and you went, like, holy shit.
Yeah, I remember I was in Portugal when that all kicked off, floating around in a swimming pool on like an airbed, and
nice.
You know, in these like sports bars, you get them televisions, don't you?
Oh yeah.
And it was me and my wife before we had children, and we used to do things like go on holiday to nice places.
God bless you.
And I'm laying there, and then on the screen comes, you know, the infamous shot of the plane, and it's like, what's going on? What's all this? You know, and we were in a foreign country, and it was like really surreal. We're in this place. It was called the Club Erin. It was like an Irish pub in Portugal, but they have a swimming.
Nice.
And they have a swimming pool, and there was hardly anybody there because it was the end of the season. And you got this going on, like, you know, breaking news. Plane has flown into the, you know, I couldn't believe it, man. And I can't imagine what it would have been like to be there, because it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's just like you couldn't make it up.
No, but you know what? It helped in a lot of ways. It helped define the modern age. It woke a lot of people up, and for me, even as a police officer at the time, getting through all that made me realize that before I leave my job, I want to make sure that you've changed it. We've at least one life for the positive, that you've made positive change, because otherwise, why are you on this earth? So it doesn't have to be a huge amount of change. I don't have to change 1,000 lives. Just change one for the positive, and you've done what you were put on the earth to do.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Eric, and it's very pertinent to the anchor discussion and like the OSR. I have, and you talked about gatekeepers as well.
Right.
I personally haven't run into any of the firestorms of abuse and one thing and another. And I've been lucky. I've not met with gatekeepers and all this stuff. All I've found is been like positive, supportive characters, people that will give you praise and help you with feedback. And when I started listening to Random Screed and doing my call-ins, I was calling in because I was listening to a bloke who was asking me a question.
Yep.
And I naturally just wanted to answer. Here's a bloke wants an answer to a question. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to phone him up and tell him, what I think and support the show. And it's just because I wanted to see somebody else doing a bit better. And, it's all the small things that add up that make bigger changes, isn't it? It's just them little drip feeding positivity, and before you know it, you've actually made proper changes. Like, look, this anchor thing's been going for a little while. People have been chatting, and finally here we are today. We've done something a little bit different. We're having this chat now, and you've already said that there's interest in the idea.
Oh yeah.
And who knows? Who knows where it could go? Perhaps we'd get the likes of these guys from North Texas. The old boys from back in the day. Maybe they'll come and join in one of these Discord chats.
I probably will have. I've had offers from some people I've met at North Texas to sit down and, well, not literally sit down because it's this, but to virtually sit down and do a show. Chris Clark, who did a lot of stuff with Gary Gygax in Gary's post TSR, or he's left voicemails. But Chris wants to then do it. I'm pulling a blank. It's one of the writers of one of the earlier AD&D modules, and of course I can't remember his name. Oh my god, I'd have to look it up. But we talked at North Texas, and he actually was listening to the podcast even in its early days. I've been doing this now for 5.5 months, but he wants to do it. So there's an interest in, because there's a history to the OSR, to gaming, that is going to be lost at some point. And documentaries that are being kickstarted is great, but there's also a verbal tradition of the inside stories that you're not going to hear unless you get the people from the inside to open up. I'm looking forward to sitting down with Chris Clark. That'll probably be after Game Home. Well, definitely be at the Game Home. There's no way I can squeeze it in before then. But
I think it's important, and because you're actually, when you do that, you're actually going to capture their voice, aren't you? It's their actual voice, not just what they've written. It's their voice and their character.
I'm reading the live chat for our live show, and it's a good thing I wasn't reading it live because I would have been laughing hysterically at some of the stuff. Thank you, Pex. Yes, I know. Listen, I can blame it on the chemo too. All right, the chemo gave me chemo brain to some extent. I was horrible with names before my brain got rewired. After it got rewired, oh my god, my world needs to wear name tags. It'll make my life so much simpler. But
I'm terrible with names.
So, dude, we've been knocking on close to an hour for this. Can you believe it? Unscripted, uninterrupted.
Oh, yeah, but I never use a script for anything.
Oh, neither do I. And oh god, there was the podcast that's won a couple of Emmys. Robin and no.
Yeah,
they talk about stuff.
Yeah, Ken and Robin talk about
stuff.
Talk about stuff. Yeah,
that is a scripted podcast, it's interesting. Don't get me wrong, but it's scripted. They are, and I'm not saying it's scripted word for word, but they've got all their points ready and
oh yeah. But I'll tell you what, they're pretty good at improv. I've seen them live at Dragon Meet in London.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially Ken. Ken's very, very quick. He's very
good to
quick.
know.
Yeah, and I saw them live. They had their notepads, because they've got quite a lot of promotional stuff to get in, haven't they? And, they kind of like, I don't know what the technical terms are, but they sort of like, they lead into it, and then they've got all their various transitions. And
yeah, no, it's a very professional sounding podcast. Like I said, we're a bit more punk rock to their journey.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's okay. That's the way it should be. Well, I think we should wrap it because I know your podcast tend to be short, my podcast tend to be short, and I'm not cutting this into 4 episodes. It's going to go up as 1 as far as I'm concerned. Because I don't think we ever stop talking long enough to put breaks in anyway. But, I listen. This is a new format that we're experimenting with, and for my listeners and for Colin's listeners, you may hear Colin doing something with, I don't know, Tim Shorts, or with Jason, or I might do something with, Save or Die podcast, which isn't even OSR. Well, it's OSR, but it's not part of the Anchor stuff. No,
and I know Tim Shorts is definitely keen, but his schedule is difficult, isn't it? As is a lot of people.
Well, that's why you throw it out there, and it's like, all right, well, maybe in 3 weeks at this, however it works. Tim is great people. So
yeah.
And if you folks haven't been listening to the Gothridge Manor podcast, I'm going to pimp it for Tim right now. Colin's podcast is Spike Pit. Mine is Tavern Chat. And I'd like to thank everybody who stepped in and listened to us live on the Discord channel.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I'm going to pimp the Discord channel right now. Our Discord channel is sneaking up on 1,200 members. It is extremely active. Last night it didn't shut up apparently in chat. I was surprised to see that. And we do live chats Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Sunday mornings. And Zach Glazer from Frog Gut Games and I, after Game Hole, are going to be doing a chat on Wednesday afternoons, around noon Eastern, to it could be like twice a month. But that's going to be for our friends across the pond, something that they can participate in a little bit easier. So, Colin, I'm going to give you the final outro.
Well, that's TavernSpike.
This has been TavernSpike, the mongrelization of our podcast. I hope you liked it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Eric. It's been good fun, and thanks for everybody listening in and on the live chat. I haven't been able to see it, but it sounds like it was amusing. And we'll have to do it again sometime, Eric, in the not too distant future, if you're up for it.
Dude, I am always up for it. For the most part, with my schedule, it's fairly open, except for like uncle duties and stuff like that. But
yeah,
we'll make it work.
Just give your regards to my niece for me.
I shall.
Your niece for me, I should say.
Well, she'll be like, I have another uncle. She has 2 uncles, and by the way, and they're both named Eric. So I am simply uncle, and the other uncle is Uncle Eric. So I think I came out ahead.
Okay.
All right, folks, and we're going to leave you at that. God bless, and roll your dice well. We'll catch you later.
And there you go, folks. Me and Eric having the chat over at the tavern. Hope you enjoyed it. And if anybody else wants to do something similar, give us a call. I'm enjoying this. I think it's a good thing and lots of fun. Thanks for listening. I know it's a long episode,
But, well, what do you do? Couple of old geezers chatting on. Catch you later.